Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to start a series of videos where I'm going to walk through the IPF rulebook for powerlifting, kind of step by step. We're going to break down what you need to know for your first competition and what these rules mean. I'm a big proponent of reading through the rulebook for your first meet, no matter what. So I just think these videos might be able to help you interpret these different meanings coming from someone who's been competing for many years at this point. So first, we're going to go ahead and take a look at, and as you can see, there's so many pages, 38 pages of rules for powerlifting. The first thing that I want to go over today is going to be the attire that you can wear on the platform. I think this kind of sets the foundation as far as um, how you can pack your bag and know what you need to purchase for your first powerlifting meet. So scrolling down, that's equipment specification, which is actually more for whoever's holding the meet necessarily. We got squat rack, bench. If we keep scrolling, we'll get to it eventually. I am going to do a video on each of the lifts as well. So look out for those and we'll kind of break those down. So I think I'm getting close. There we are. So personal equipment. And what this is going to mean by personal equipment is what you're allowed to wear on the platform specifically. So if I zoom in here, suits. Now, some of you may or may not be familiar with what a suit is by supportive. That's talking about a bench shirt or a squat suit or a deadlift suit for that matter. Those are very tight and they can assist the lift. Those are allowed in equipped competitions. So you'll see may only be worn in equipped competitions. It's a little bit more of an old school style and very few people do it. If you go to your first meet, I should say very few people in the United States just getting into the sport. Rather, there's plenty of international lifters who lift equipped. But if you see someone who's in knee wraps or suits at your first meet, you'll understand, oh, they're in the equipped division. Um, I should also mention that since this is the IPF technical rule book, it might differ from some of your other federations. I do find that there is a lot of carryover between the rule books, though. So this might be still good for you to hear for your first meet, even if you're not lifting through the IPF or the affiliate, which would be Powerlifting America here in the United States. Okay, so if you're lifting equipped, you can wear the supportive suit for all of the lifts. Granted, you're probably only going to want to use a bench shirt for bench and a squat suit for squat. And some people use a squat suit for deadlift. That's totally optional. I'm going to kind of gloss over the supportive equipment part because I know most of us are going to be lifting raw, right? So there is an approved list of apparel. So that's something to know for your first meet. There is a list of equipment that is approved for competition, especially if you're lifting through the IPF or its IPF affiliate. Now, once you get to local meets, usually they're just worried about if your equipment fits the specifications that they outline. And we'll talk about that once we start talking about things like belts and socks, etc. Okay, so IPF only allows for single ply equipment. That's worth noting. And here are your specifications. Like I said, I'm going to kind of gloss over this because most of you are probably getting into the sport with raw lifting. Okay, here we go. This is what we're looking for. Something else that you should note, right? You can have the manufacturer of your suit. You may have your flag and your name, etc. And there is a list of sponsored logos that are allowed or not. But at a local meet, which I'm kind of gearing this towards, you won't have to worry about this. Just wear a normal t-shirt and you'll totally be fine. So when we're looking at this non-supportive equipment, right? By non-supportive, it's going to be truly equipment that doesn't tend to help you lift more weight. Now, there can be an argument with this as far as like your belt and your knee sleeves being supportive, but this is what's considered non-supportive. You all may think of raw lifting whenever they say non-supportive here, right? So, like I said, right, approved list of apparel and equipment for use at IPF competitions. These are allowed anywhere. And then it says, in addition, such non-supportive suit from approved manufacturers must meet all specifications in the technical rules that we'll talk about. If it's a local meet, they will let you use non-approved equipment as long as it's within those specifications. Right. So if we scroll down, right, we'll just work through the list. Okay, so the suit, and by suit, they're mostly just talking about your singlet, right? So this is going to be a one piece, think of it like a unitard or something that people wrestle in as well. And it's going to be form fitting. This is the one thing that you have to have for a powerlifting meet. Like if someone's signing up for a meet, one of the first things that you may hear is that powerlifting meets are expensive, which I agree. Powerlifting is an expensive hobby, but the only thing that you necessarily have to compete is a singlet to wear. Everything else is completely optional, aside from shoes, of course. But yeah, this is the one thing. So you may want to look into SBD, which who I work with, so I am biased with their singlets. I think it's the best on the market, but I know a lot of people use the Inzer singlets because they are the cheapest. And if you're just getting into it, something like that, or just a wrestling singlet will work perfectly fine. Okay, and then this is just talking about the type of fabric. It can't be some sort of like super stretchy, supportive fabric. I can't think of a singlet that personally is going to be considered supportive. So as long as it's a traditional singlet, you'll be okay. And of course, it must be a single thickness, etc. Here are the dimensions of the singlet. I think the easiest way to do this is just purchase a powerlifting singlet from one of the powerlifting manufacturers, and then you'll just know, hey, my singlet fits the specifications. Whenever I did my first meet, I wore a wrestling singlet, and to be honest, at the local level, they're not going to get out a measuring tape and measure your singlet's length and everything like that. As long as you are following the rules as far as it not touching your knee sleeves and, you know, things like that, not having sleeves on your singlet, then you're not going to run into an issue for this. There we go. It can have logos, yada, yada. Obviously, this is more important at the international level and the national level. For a local meet, I would not worry about these so much because they're not going to be big sticklers on it. Right, so this is a good example of the SBD singlet that she was wearing. Right, this is the old style. They have newer ones, but it's the same concept. Right. Next, something that a lot of people don't know, you have to wear a t-shirt under your equipment to lift in the IPF or the IPF affiliate. I know most federations, at least drug tested federations, make you wear a t-shirt in the squat and bench for sure. And then some of them make it optional in the deadlift, but for lifting in the IPF or Powerlifting America, you have to wear a shirt for deadlift as well. And this shirt has a list of specifications, which is kind of funny. but at least they're covering all of their bases. Essentially, they're looking for it not to be a supportive shirt, right? And have a collar. Like I couldn't wear this on the platform. Part of the reasoning for that is image for the federation, etc., which can be debated if that's a big deal, but it is what it is. And then the big one here is the sleeves must terminate below the lifter's delt. So what that means is you actually have to have sleeves on your shirt. It cannot be a cutoff shirt. I know getting into powerlifting for the first time, I was kind of confused by this, and I'm glad I didn't wear a cutoff on meet day because I didn't quite understand what this meant. But by deltoid, this is your delt on your shoulder. The sleeve has to end below that. That's what it's saying. And then they may not extend or run into the elbow. So this sleeve would be okay. This is on the longer end. But if it happened to go around my elbow like this, then it would not be allowed. And what they're looking for is obviously if you have something around your elbow, it could help you with elbow extension on something like the bench press, which obviously you don't want if you're lifting raw as a federation. And then they kind of have these same rules as far as logos and names, etc. goes. Like I said, at a local meet, you're not going to have to worry about this too much. And scrolling down, they talk about supportive shirts a bit. Since this is a beginner video, I'm not going to get into bench shirts and all that entails. Just using raw. Same thing with like a slingshot. That is not allowed either. Obviously, on down, we will continue working through here. Okay, so here you go. Oh, that's talking about supportive shirts, so we'll just skip that. Underwear, another fun topic when talking about getting ready for your first meet, of course. And everyone jokes about it. They recently changed this rule a little bit too. Computer's not scrolling super easily. There you go. Okay. So watching me struggle, have to wear basically legless underwear on the platform. So you could wear something like this, briefs. I suppose you could wear a thong. Ladies, as long as you don't have legs on your underwear, you're going to be okay. This was the change that they recently made. So they recently made it so that you could have some legs, like a brief type allowed for some reason. And of course, the goal is not to have support that carries over to the squat. Like they don't want support meets nationally before, and asked about underwear that literally looked just like this, and they've said no, it's not allowed. And I think it's a communication situation with the judges. Chances are at a local meet, you're probably not going to have an issue. I've seen local meets allow things way beyond this. What I always do, I just suck it up and wear this type of underwear because it's the easiest way to know that you're within the rules. And the last thing you want is them to like call you out for something silly like underwear on a squat and have your lift overturned. So just know absolutely zero legs, basically whitey tighties, and then it has to be a mixture of cotton, nylon, or polyester. It can't be supportive, in other words. Okay, so continuing to scroll down. Socks are another big issue that people tend to overlook. So you can wear any type of sock that you want on the platform. Understand your socks cannot touch your knee sleeves, right? So they can't be up to the point where they're touching your knee sleeves, and they can't be over your knees. So they can't be super long socks. You can wear athletic socks for the squat and bench press, or you can wear long socks for those two. And then for deadlift, you must wear shin socks, right? There you go, and that's exactly what I said. Can't come in contact with knee wraps or your knee sleeves, and full length socks. So this is talking about going past that knee, like I had just said. And you must wear shin length socks for the deadlift right here. If I had $1 for every time I saw someone come out without their knee high socks and they miss their deadlift attempt because they don't have time to change into long socks, I would be able to pay for my powerlifting hobby. We'll put it that way. So please don't make that mistake. It'll kind of put a damper on the day. All right. Next up, we have the belt. Okay. Of course, this is a classic piece of kit for competition. And a lot of people ask, is it raw if you're wearing a belt? Yes, it is considered raw, and they have to be worn in the outside of the suit. And as with all of these, they have to be on an approved list if it's national or international competition. But if you're at a local meet, as long as they fit the measurement specifications that they talk about, these dimensions down here, then you're going to be okay. All right. So materials and construction, once again, I would probably just rather purchase a high quality belt from a manufacturer such as SBD. That's the belt I wear. I know Titan makes some great belts. Inzer makes some great belts. Sometimes the amount of time it takes to get those can be difficult, but if you purchase from one of those manufacturers, then you're guaranteed to be within this specification, which is nice. I like to not have to worry about it. But in my first meet, I did just wear like an old style leather belt. So as long as it fits these specifications, you should be good. And a lot of these, like buckle being attached at one end, belt may have a buckle with one or two prongs, quick release type. I can't think of a belt that doesn't use one of these ways. The only thing that I can think of as far as IPF rules goes, I've seen belts with the like a crank on it and a pulley system where you can crank it tighter, and those aren't allowed. And I know Velcro belts aren't allowed as well, which are kind of common in the gym. So just understand. And when you're on the platform, you have to have the tongue of your belt tucked in as well. So scrolling down, here we go. This just explains the dimensions, right? The width of the belt is this way, and then the thickness at max is 13 millimeters. Sometimes you'll see 10 millimeter belts, which are just a little more flexible, and they're not going to provide as much support. They all have different uses, and then these are some of the more technical things. So if you have your own belt, kind of be sure to check these to make sure they fit so that you don't get it turned down come the day of competition. Right, scrolling down, shoes or boots. Essentially, it says they have to be some sort of indoor sports shoes or sports boots. So, of course, deadlift slippers work. Wrestling shoes, that's what I wear for a deadlift. Powerlifting / weightlifting shoes like Nike Romas, perfectly fine. You can wear sneakers, that is fine. You can wear Converse, that is also fine. What they're not saying here is like you can't wear Crocs or you can't wear flip flops. Those would not be indoor sports shoes. You couldn't wear hiking boots, for example. All of those would be considered outdoor boots and would not be allowed. There are also some dimensions. I used to get really stressed out about this whenever I was first starting to compete, and now I just realized they're not going to go and measure your shoes, like go out of their way to do that, even though it is technically in the rule book here. Also, most shoes are going to fit these specifications. Just don't try and wear like high heels. Right, we are still scrolling. So another major piece of equipment is going to be your knee sleeves. They have to be made out of neoprene. Okay, and obviously you can only wear them on your knees. And for national and international meets, it has to be on that approved list of apparel. But for a local meet, as long as it's within the dimensions, they're going to let you lift in it, no problem. Once again, I would probably prefer just to purchase my knee sleeves from one of the top manufacturers, because you're going to be guaranteed to get that fit that's allowed, and the top manufacturers have the best quality product, in my opinion. So why veer away from that? I will say some of these things like knee sleeves can get quite pricey. I know the newest powerlifting knee sleeves are over $100, but it's one of those things, purchase it once and then it'll last a long time moving forward. So if we're scrolling down, here we are. Has to be one layer of neoprene up to 7 millimeters in thickness and a length of 30 centimeters, which is 12 inches in length, I believe. And this is a big one, right? And it was bigger whenever I was first getting into it, but shall not have any additional strapping, Velcro, drawstrings, padding, or similar supportive devices in or on them. So that includes the Inzer sleeves that have the Velcro over them that you can put on your elbows and knees. Whenever I was first getting in, those were super popular, and I had to be sure that those were not allowed. I think there was like a year where they were allowed, and people were getting insane carryover with them, so they just kind of threw those out. Okay, and then kind of another side point that you may want to know is your knee sleeves can't be in contact with your singlet at the top or your socks at the bottom. So just make sure you go out before you go out on the platform that there's a gap between all of those, because you don't want to miss a lift because of something silly like that. And it's rules like this. This is the reason we go through the rule book before you get to a meet, because there are some small nitpicky rules that if you don't know them, you don't know them. And you hate to have your experience ruined because of a small rule like this. Okay. Scrolling down, now we're talking about wraps. It's important to note that for raw lifting, which we're talking about here, knee wraps are not allowed. I know some people argue knee wraps are raw. Maybe for other federations, they're considered raw, but for the IPF, they are not. They are equipped. So we're mostly going to be talking about wrist wraps here. And that's going to be, the supportive wraps. This is talking about knee wraps for equipped lifting. Non-supportive wraps will be wrist wraps as well. And here you go. Once again, you just have dimensions, and they have to fit these dimensions. Okay, max 1 meter in length, 8 centimeters in width. My thought process has always been, hey, if you're allowed to use up to a meter length wrist wrap, why not use the full meter? I use the max length flexible wrist wraps from SBD, but there's so many that are approved and within these dimensions that you could use any of those and be fine. And then here you're allowed to wear sweatbands, but it has to be in the same, spot on your wrist. So it's really tough. See, you can't wear wrist wraps and sweatbands. So to me, why would you wear a sweatband? I don't know. This is also something important. I've never had anyone check, but it's important to know. Okay, the wrist covering may not extend 10 centimeters above the joint. So above is like towards your elbow. 10 centimeters is 4 inches. So like all the way down here. And 10 centimeters below this, 2 centimeters, sorry, below the center of the wrist. So it can only go up so far. You can't wrap up to your fingers and then have it like down to your elbow or something crazy like that. As long as you don't have some crazy wrist wrap going on, I don't think they're going to get a ruler out and measure you for this, but it is worth knowing. Um, yeah, and then finally for international and certain religions, they do allow a headscarf for females. And just know that the referees can ask you if you have long hair to change that hairstyle so that they can see if your head comes up. And then scrolling down, we've got the knee wraps. I talked about those already. That's going to be for equipped lifting, so I'm going to just kind of brush over it here. Know that if you're lifting equipped, you should run through and read this. I know the IPF rules for knee wraps are different than other federations too. All right. Medical tape. So medical tape is usually not allowed unless one, it's like covering up an injury, which then you get it expected by the jury or the official doctor, as it says there. And then also you're allowed one layer of medical tape on your thumb, and a lot of lifters use that for hook grip. So if you're a hook grip deadlifter, this is important to know. For everyone else, me, I've never had to wear medical tape on the platform. So just understand it's there for you, but a lot of people don't make use of that exception there. And then this is essentially just talking about how your personal equipment will be inspected. Essentially, all meets are going to have some sort of equipment check at the beginning where you take all of your equipment you're going to be wearing on the platform and you show it to all of the referees. They take a look at it, make sure that it's within the specifications of this rule book, and then they give you the go ahead to wear it, basically. And that's where they'll have those measuring tapes for knee sleeves and wrist wraps, things like that. That's also where at national and international meets, they'll look for sponsors' logos and see if you're allowed to wear different like t-shirts and things like that on the platform. But for a local meet, I would not stress this as long as you're keeping it appropriate. Obviously, don't wear a shirt that like drops the F-bomb or something crazy. Going on, I think we are getting pretty close to finished. The last thing that I'll cover here is just some general rules. You are allowed to use baby powder, right, which is a solid lubricant, a dry lubricant. And a lot of people use this on their legs for the deadlift. And you are allowed to use chalk on your hands for gripping the bar, but you're not allowed to use oil, grease, or anything else like a liquid lubricant, for example. And then you're not allowed to wear adhesives on your footwear to like help you stick to the bench. And let's see, foreign substances. Obviously, they don't want to make the bar sticky or have to clean it off between lifters. And then the last thing here is you can wear a little protective guard between the sock and shin. Finally, I didn't see it in here, but it is totally fine. If you want to wear a mouth guard, that is allowed in competition. So just know that I spent years wearing a mouth guard. Now I don't wear one anymore. It's just a personal preference. So if you do wear a mouth guard, understand that it is allowed and it'll be totally fine. Okay, and now we're starting to get into the different lifts. So I'll cut this video off here. Hopefully that that gave a good explanation to you all as far as what you can wear on the platform and what you're not allowed to wear. And I think this can be valuable as you approach your first meet to really understand uh, these rules. If you like the video, please like and subscribe. As always, I appreciate it. And keep an eye out for my later videos where I'm looking at some of these other technical rules on the squat, bench, and deadlift. Right? So thank you all for tuning in. And until next time, happy lifting.